We now have the final session of the attention stage, which is a gathering of the 5 most prominent practitioners of attention research in the country or in Europe. This is one of the great things about MadFest is that you get a chance to see old friends, bump into people that you might not otherwise normally see in amongst everything like this. One of the things about organising the attention stage is I get to bump into my friends on the stage. So we have 5 of the, like I say, the leading practitioners, not just thinkers about attention, but people who actually do the job and who have been doing it for a number of years. So as some people filter out, the MadFest people have been let in the hordes of people who are waiting to come in. There's no point in starting before we got more people coming. But here we go. So there's a whole load of chairs. There's barely enough room on the stage for all of us here. But do you want to let people in now? Very good. So this is one for the cognoscenti amongst us here. Okay. Well, as people start to filter in, let's get everyone up on the stage. Panel, come up, and we'll introduce ourselves. No. Yeah, we're okay. Very good. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining me and for ending what it's been a fantastic session on the attention stage. But it's we end almost where we began here, which is what we want to talk about. But can you all quickly introduce yourselves and then we can get going, starting with.
Hi, guys. I'm John Waite. I'm Global Head of Planning for Havas Media Network.
Hi everyone, my name's Katie Hartley. I work in our data and technology team, serving all of our practice areas at Dentsu, so media, creative, CXM and BX.
Hi, I'm Erfan. I look after all things data tech, tools and platforms at Mediahub.
Hi everyone, I'm Caroline Hugodinck and I'm leading the research and data team at TIDS.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Sumner from Publicis, SVP, Data Audience and Technology.
So we have representatives of all the major agencies. Simon Thomas was meant to be joining us as well, but is sadly from WPP, but he's off sick at the moment, sadly. So that's why we don't have the WPP person there. But we're lucky as well to have Caroline from TEEDS as a. And it'll become obvious in a second why Caroline is amongst all the agency people, because TEEDS really have been at the forefront of the attention debate for years and years now. And this year is the 12th birthday of Lumen, but the 10th year that we've been working with Dentsu. And so I thought it'd be quite good for us to get together and say, what have we learned in the last 10 years? And actually, Katie, if it's okay, I'll start with you on that. When we started this great long journey of it, why did you bother? What were you hoping for? Why did you start on the journey?
You're just such a good salesperson, Mike. No, I guess the original intention of our programme still very much stands kind of true today, in that we wanted to use this kind of fabulous new lens that this then new eye-tracking technology could give us to help us better understand the value of an exposure and use that to power better, more effective media deployment.
So that was always the aim right from the start, was it?
True visionaries.
Yeah, I see. There you go. How about the rest of you? And it's going to get boring if I go one by one, but what did you hope to get out of this, Caroline? What did when you started?
Yes, when we started, what I was looking for really is a metric that could capture the user behavior and the engagement of the user. So that was really the starting point. but we found much more with attention at the end of the day. But that was the starting point, the human metric.
Jens? I think, my journey probably started when I was working for Caroline, who told me to go out and get some research, both on media and creative, and the attention thing came up, and it sort of answered the question that we had, that was, what can represent what we're doing better, and sort of evidently it just gave us both sort of rich metrics on creatives, but also started talking about sort of the quality media play. So sort of instantly it was like, this is good. There's something in this, and it kind of started there, really. I think.
So I was at dentsu before moving to Havas when we started the attention stuff, and the ambition, really, if I'm going to put it bluntly, was to make advertising a bit less shit. Right, just raise the floor, because what we saw going on across the board was misincentivization. Advertisers trying to deliver numbers on a spreadsheet rather than good experiences for consumers and for advertisers. And if you think about the wrong incentivizations, if you're incentivizing clicks or web visits or impressions, all you do is incentivize publishers to churn out cheap ads really across their pages. Content suffers, advertising creativity suffers, the whole ecosystem is broken. So it's trying to find a metric that would create better incentives and deliver greater business success for advertisers. That was kind of the grand ambition. But start by just making it a little less shit.
So Erfan, do you think do you think is advertising a little less shit now? Is advertising a little less shit now? As a result, have we with those objectives there? Have we actually got, after 10 years, have we made any progress?
Yeah, we've made a lot of progress. I mean, this was born out of pure frustration, like dogma legacy. We're measuring the same currencies in the same ways, optimizing the same planning platforms for years. And I used to talk about infrequency and inattention. I used to annoy a lot of people. And they say, well, Erfan, this deck is perfect. You don't need to mention that. And I think what attention has done is it's flipped that on its head. It's helped us create a lens that we always wanted to do. And it's this shift that we've always wanted to do. It's almost like the great pivot in our industry. And it's just made everything better. And I think some clients value it, some clients don't. The way I talk about it now to clients is it's just hygiene. It's just on your media plan. Don't worry about it. It's always there. And some clients lean into it. Great. The ones that don't, just don't worry about.
Well, a question to all of you then, because who does value this then? Is there a type of client who you think, this conversation is going to be easy, they're going to get this, and who doesn't value it? Phil, you look as if you.
Honestly, just in terms of what I've observed, there's no sort of standard pattern or industry. I think it genuinely still takes one person or a couple of people at an organisation that believe it and champion it and push it. And that's the key thing that I find. There are two very similar organisations. One, straight on the train, and they love it, and we go forward and we do learning agendas, and everything's hunky-dory. And others, it just stops because it doesn't have somebody on the advertiser side that really champions it and really believes it. And so, I consistently see that. And back to the point, Erfan, you were saying, it's kind of hygiene in certain areas, but there's still such a swathe of people in the advertising community that haven't got a Scooby, that the message hasn't got across to, that we still see. I'm sort of flabbergasted now, the conversations I have where I get blank looks from people in the industry who kind of, I think, should know better.
Caroline, have you found that some clients really get this and others are harder to say? Are there characteristics of people who get it and characteristics of people who are more skeptical?
Not really, but what we see is that global teams usually get the point, understand the value and the purpose, and sometimes in local markets they are struggling to get this used and activated. So this is where we can support clients, helping them to build experiments in markets so that the team gets it right.
So the actual an experimental approach proves things out over time. John, you've been a great advocate of an experimental approach for a minute. Is that the answer to it, do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to have really, really clear goals and outcomes of what you want to achieve when you're testing with attention. I think it really falls down with clients if you just go, let's just go and optimise an attention-optimised campaign, and they do it and they see they got more attention, but then they go, so what? That connection between attention and outcomes, and for brand and business, is the real selling point. If we can demonstrate, and when we demonstrate, that when you optimise towards the right level of attention, not always more, not always less, that it moves the needle on brand metrics and business metrics for them, that's when it clicks. And they suddenly go, like I was on stage with Simon at Dreams yesterday, they now see it as a way to maximise media value. Attention means you've reached people. They're getting more reach per pound than they ever were before because more of it counts. That's how he's rationalising the value in his head. So more of the stuff you buy is seen. It falls down when I think you're dealing with brands or clients who come from a really heavy performance background, and they kind of go, oh, well, when I can optimise to outcomes, why do I need attention, right? And then ensues the interesting debate, let's say.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Katie, you guys have been working with Carlsberg, and to Phil's point, Yves Briantias, the CMO of Carlsberg, is a believer, and he is the motive force there. But I mean, just thinking, I mean, in the Carlsberg experience, you've got all of these different objectives, and you have different plans for different countries and stuff like that. Are you guys adopting it seems that the way to convince people is not to blandly say, use attention. It's about using it for different jobs and purposes. Is that something that you find elsewhere in dentistry?
Yes, absolutely. And I think to lots of the points that have just been mentioned, we have made some missteps along the way where we were saying we've created this proprietary model, everybody should be using it, and the rationale behind that was really strong, but actually in practice, we found application was happening on really tiny campaigns, and then client teams were coming to me and saying, Katie, this is great, but what does this tell me? I had very little room to optimise. Is this a bit of an F up? But yeah, so I think the new structure that we have with our proprietary model that is powered by Lumen, whereby your team help our client teams design their attention journey and the experimentation, is great. And absolutely, like Carlsberg have been a brilliant client for coming on that journey with us. They've done a huge amount of work. They've got, if we think our journey has been chipping away at the things we don't know and the different variables, and then using the eye track data to kind of make more informed decisioning and baking that into the model. The brand and the creative itself is a factor. And we wrote a playbook around how we could understand that nuance, and Carlsberg have created their own proprietary models. So they've got Carlsberg norms, they've got brand norms, and they're seeing really great results from it.
It's a good question there. I mean, you're saying there's still an awful lot we don't know, and this year there's been some very interesting research about co-op and point of sale. I still think, and much as I love dentsu, I still think the most interesting thing that we've ever written is about aggregate attention and frequency and things like that. What else do we not know? What's the Erfan? We're quite good at. We know some things about attention, but there's a whole lot more. What do we still not know? What would you like to find out?
I think it's the lens of mood and
mood.
Mentality. I mean, you think about like doom scrolling, bombardment. You treat that with the same level of attention as someone being a really clean state. And the reality is that's cognitive overload. And that when you're in that mindset, how effective is your communication? And I think we're going into a world of AI, which is interesting. You've got adaptive systems now that can tailor. It's not just about media schedule. It's about planning to mood-based attention. I think AI can help us with that, right? Creators are really good at this. They'll go, well, I'll run my post to educate people at 10 a.m. because their mental state. And I think we need to move to that. We need to move.
Caroline, one of the things that Teeds is, particularly good at is always, to like John's point of linking attention to outcomes. And you have your own internal brand lifts systems and things. your own particular area of focus is on how much attention you need to drive the right outcome. What else do we need to learn about that?
Well, for me, it's a work in progress because we are doing tests with clients, but we need much more to be able to have benchmark for a given client, for a given objective. So we are building benchmark, and it's a work in progress. And that's true that this is an obsession for me to understand how much attention we need, because I still feel that at the beginning, the ambition was to put the user at the center and to recognize that attention was a scarce resource. So I'm still on this,
Yeah, you have to sometimes remember that even though we have been working on this for a very long time, it's still new news for lots of people. And I often find myself starting the conversation far too far down the road. I've said it many times, so I get bored of my own voice. But it's news for.
No one could get bored of your voice, Mike.
Oh, I don't know about that. Look at their faces.
Really, not the case. That's an important point. And I really noticed that because I've only been on, say, the agency side for the last couple of years, but I forget how we're all on the train. We're all like at the front of the train, and forgetting how far getting that message disseminating through businesses and to clients, how much we sort of raise the ceiling, but actually going back and raising the floor. Now we're kind of 5 years in, and how important that's been. And that was something I focused on an awful lot over the last 12 months, really going back to basics, and it made a real difference. To answer the question and go back that we were talking about, cognitive overload, I completely agree. I think that's going to be a really big area to look at, and I'm really excited about that. And then create the congruence, the creative media congruence, which we've all talked about and done bits of, algorithmically with the synthetic models, the disaggregation of media and creative together, and the relationship of creative with hygiene and attention and emotion at scale, I think is, for me, probably the most exciting kind of next step, and the ability that's going to be democratized and we can do a lot more that's client specific. So I'm truly excited about that development.
And let's finish on that topic then of merging things together. Last year, 2 years ago actually, I saw on this stage there was a Venn diagram of sort of the unicorn product that we should have, which is attention and carbon and AI. And sadly, thanks to President Trump, no one takes carbon seriously anymore, which is, given if anyone was here yesterday when it was 40 degrees in London, makes me perhaps the climate crisis does actually exist and isn't going away.
I think the screen behind me is
exactly. It's just, it seems that there's a thing about combining stuff, that AI especially, and it's interesting that all of your agencies are focusing on the combining of data, and TAM, the TEEDS ad manager, can have DSP capabilities to allow you to bring lots of data all together. Tell me about, let's conclude on what are the mashups that you're looking for in the view, and what sort of value are they going to create?
I said it yesterday with the Dreams presentation. One of the challenges with attention is that it's different for every brand, for every single client, for every single campaign. The how much do you need question, whether you're a retailer versus an auto manufacturer versus an FMCG, how well known your brand is. There's so many different filters and levers that can change that relationship, and I think that's something that can put brands off. They want the easy answer, which is how much do I need to buy, and there isn't a simple answer. And I think that's where the ML AI stuff can come in, is utilising the data sets that we've all been building up over the last few years, using AI, ML to make sense of all that and say, can you model for me what that would be for a brand that looks like this? Yeah. To create answers much easier than having to go on a 6-month, year-long journey and spending loads of money with Lumen to do it.
You've got a 6-week journey spending loads of money with Lumen if you want.
Which will be totally worth it. But yeah, that simplification, I think that's where AI is going to come in and be really handy in this space.
How about you, Katie? What data? What we're going to mash together with attention next to create value?
All the things. So I guess a boring dentsu structure thing, but I mentioned I'm now in this data and tech situation and that we are serving media and creative and CXM, and that's because we believe those capabilities are better and stronger when they are together. So for example, it sounds very boring to talk about dashboarding, but we had teams that did customer data dashboarding, and then we had media teams doing media data dashboarding. And actually, isn't it going to be more interesting if we have those things connected? Isn't our understanding going to be elevated, and won't we make smarter decisions?
And perhaps just having one thing might be, it's slightly simpler for the 26-year-old planners, rather than having two dashboards open and a third one and a fourth one. If it was all brought together, that might make the cognitive overload point that Erfan was making, but for media planners. Okay, so quickly, Erfan, where are we going next? What's the? So we've talked about audience targeting data. We've talked about mashing up data sets and making it simple. What's the next data set or the next insight that we'll bring to include in the attention?
I mean, the attention work we've done, particularly with you, has opened up a whole new body of work, a new program of work, and that's about ingesting data, building models, and activating upon them or planning against them. So we have data coming in around ethical media, around misinformation, quality journalism, obviously scope 3 you mentioned, and then URL level data. So like we can optimize the context, and you put all of that together, and then you realize that there's no scale. So I think the next thing is how do we scale that? How do we join all those things rather than look at them isolated view? And that's hard to do, right? But that's the challenge that we're at the moment.
The scale thing.
Well, we're gonna have to get on to. But Caroline, so what's next on the? Now that Teeds is all about outcomes, thanks to the merger of your company with what's next on your agenda then?
So we would like to bring attention at the planning stage. So we are building a planning tool at the moment in time so that we can have a view of the performance of the campaign before it starts in terms of reach. So we'll use attention as part of this. And my dream would be that we could also have an assessment of the potential of a creative in terms of attention, and then buy accordingly, right? So
you should talk to Katie.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is the dream I'm after.
The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, as they say. But Phil, just to conclude, what's on your agenda next? We've talked about adding in audience data and context data, making it simpler to use, adding in the creative. It's always an and rather than an or thing. But what are you gonna? What do you really want to add to the?
I think I've already said it. It's creative, and it's creative at scale, and the disaggregation of that for better planning, but also better decisioning, and the impact that's going to have on short, CPMs, improved CPMs, and long-term outcomes. And for me, that currently is probably the big focus. Is the big sort of gold rush. So really, it's going to be sort of doggedly focused on the congruence of those two things.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that you can all come back next year and we can talk about further. There'll be less catchy title, Attention at 11, but we might be able to talk a little bit more about the continuing progress. And of course, that progress is made because of people in this audience asking interesting or difficult questions and demanding more of stuff. So our progress is largely dependent on your questions, and so thank you for your attention and your support, and we'll see you next year.
Mike, if I may, and a big shout out to you. You've been driving this whole engine for us.
That's very kind of
right?
me and Karen and the nice people at Explain. Well, that's very kind of you, but I'm lucky to have such good friends and such critical friends sometimes. Guys, thank you very much. A big hand.